Hi everyone, thank you for coming back to this video series. This is, if you've been following, how to set up your own infrastructure, self-hosted. Essentially all the various things that we usually pay for, you can host on your own. If you've looked at the first few videos, we've gone through setting up the pfSense router, our email gateway, our DNS server, which can both serve our DNS both on the internet and internally. And today we're going to be focusing on the email server itself. So if you've been following this document, which I release and update as I update the video series, we are going to be setting up our email server with MailCow. It's no small feat to acknowledge the shoulders that we're standing on when it comes to setting up something like MailCow. It essentially encapsulates all of the various components that you would have had to set up 5-6 years ago, all on your own, to now a containerized system that out of the box is already production ready and you can host this yourself. So that's what we'll be focusing on. Maybe at some video series in the future, I can show you guys how to do this all on your own and not even use containers from someone like MailCow. But for the purposes of this video, I would consider something like MailCow, which is open source, production ready. They have a support system already as well if you want to leverage it. Or because it is open source, you can also run it complete yourself, and there's a vibrant community around it. So let's go ahead and dive in. And like I said, you will see an updated version of this document online after this video is out, with these new commands starting on page 11. And for the most part, it should just be as simple as following these steps, but obviously if there's something I need to amend, I'm more than happy to do that. I've already done the first part here, which is SSHing into whatever server I'll be using for MailCow. And I've already done my sudo to root. Yes, I know that there's reasons why you shouldn't do that, and that's one of the great things about Linux is everyone has an opinion, and most of the time they're pretty on the dot. Because I am doing this for testing purposes and to show you guys how to do it, to make my life easy, I'm just going to set it up as the root user. But I would expect you guys to have different users with different permissions and being able to sudo to run your commands. I'm just not doing that in this case. So let's go ahead and dive into the next part here, which is installing the latest version of Docker, which is what MailCow explicitly states that they need for their installation. Like I said, this should be copy and paste for the most part, so we'll just let that run. All right, there it goes. And you'll notice if you go to MailCow's site, you'll see that a lot of the commands are almost entirely copy and paste for this first portion. Everything that I do afterwards, which is configuring PMG, Proxmox PMG, and MailCow, that's where I do my own thing when it deviates a little bit from their installation. But like I said, you can follow along with this video series to see what I did. I did the best I could within the document to show you guys how to do all this as well. I'm open to suggestions for improvements in the documentation I have. I did see that there was quite a bit of interest to these documents. Oh, there we go. Perfect. So that's there. So now let's go ahead and enable Docker. There it goes. Now we're going to install the latest version of Docker Compose. While this is running, I did want to say that from the last video that I did notice that people were testing against my PMG service. I'm more than happy to let you guys do that as long as no one was abusing. I was happy to see that people were actually testing against it, their own system, which means that they are following along with these videos. And I did have quite a few people reach out with questions that they had on this setup. I will do the best I can to answer questions. I'm really enjoying how the community is curious about these things, or how some organizations are looking to bring a lot of this expertise in house, and where it might look like a daunting setup are now feeling a lot more comfortable with doing so. So let's go to the next part here, which is actually setting up MailCow itself. Okay, so we're going to go to the OPT directory, and we are going to clone the latest version of MailCow's Dockerized config. This shouldn't take too long. There it is. All right, now we're going to go into that directory, and we are going to generate a config file. Okay, this will be very important. I put my info on here, but yours would be different. So the first thing it asks is for the full qualified domain name for your mail server. If you guys remember early in the video series, I was saying that this was going to be my mail server's fully qualified domain name. So I put that in there. It's asking for my time zone. UTC is fine for everyone, but I'm just putting the East Coast, which is where I'm in. And then it's going to ask me which of the branches I want. Obviously, for 99.9% of you, you're going to want the master stable branch, which is what I would consider production ready. And it goes ahead and it configures or adds everything that it would need in the config file. And it also checks if the IP you're using is clean, which mine is. And that's why I was saying we are standing on the shoulders of a lot of other people who have contributed to these containers and built them, maintained them, because this sort of work would have taken a whole lot longer. This video would be a lot longer if I had to do that. And you see here updating the MailCow, which is the config file, which is optional. I'll show you guys what it looks like. If you want to copy these passwords and stuff, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm just going to delete this config and recreate it again. So, you know, your mileage will vary if you want to try to access the system after this video is created. These are all the various settings that we can change. I'm comfortable leaving them in default, which is why I'm not changing any of it. But obviously, you can make your choices at that point. And so I'm going to leave all this as is, and I'm going to go ahead and close out. And this is now where we can start the starting and deploying of the MailCow service. And this is why I was saying all of these services are things that you would have installed on a bare metal system. I'm going to go back at least 7 years. I wasn't using MailCow back then. I set up a few email services, and it was through like Postfix and whatever UI I could think of at the time that I wanted to play with. There's a few that just I don't remember what their names were at this point. Setting up DOGE and Nginx for my MailCow service. All of these containers are essentially a lot of work that has been wiped off for someone who just wants to set up an email service. And I'm very grateful for the team that is part of MailCow that have set these up. Anyways, let's let that finish. It's going to take a few more seconds while it deploys. And after it deploys, you don't have to do this, but I like to do this just because on initial setup it will take a little longer to do its thing. And you probably don't want to sit there waiting, wondering if it worked or not. You can look at the logs. Okay, so it is now deploying. After we've pulled all those containers, it is now deploying them. And as soon as it gives me a prompt, I'm going to run this command to actually see it, see the logs for all these deploys to make sure everything's running fine. And then we'll go to the browser to see what it looks like. And just as a reminder, I'm using minimal compute power for all of this, just to show how much you can get away with. The Proxmox Mail Gateway, I think, is running on about 4 gigs, and I put 4 CPUs. It really, you could do 2. And this system here, the one that has MailCow, is also, I think, 4 gigs with 4 CPUs. But I'm fairly certain I could probably get away with a little less in terms of CPUs for this. Obviously, if you have a lot of users on it, yes, you're going to want to raise that. Okay, here we go. Oh, okay, that's right. So just so you know, I had postfix running on this system already. I need to stop that because it's using port 25. All right, and then let's try to run Docker Compose again, and that should start up the postfix service on here. That's not something you would necessarily have to worry about if you didn't have postfix. When I set up my systems, by default, I install postfix in case I need to send emails from a system. Let's look at the logs. There we go. I think for whatever reason it didn't copy the -- follow. So it's actually going through and starting up. It's not fully up yet, but we're seeing there that it's slowly getting there. So for example, there it's waiting on a port 9001. So if I were to go to the browser, let me bring that up here, and I click on refresh. See how it's saying it's coming up slowly, but it's not up yet. We just got to continue waiting for this thing to finish. Once MailCow is up, we won't need to come back to the terminal. We'll be able to go and work off of the browser for both PMG, the final tweaks we need to do there, and for the MailCow service. We'll just give it another minute or two. And there it is. So if I bring back the browser now, I'm going to turn off the session here. This is the MailCow administrative login. So it's the IP that you're using, or host if you're using DNS, and /admin. And let me put the PDF document here beside me. Bear with me. There we go. And if you see here, these are the admin default credentials. Please go ahead and change these. Okay, and we're in. So let's go down the list here. What's the next thing we're going to do? We're going to set up the default relay. Now, the reason why I want to do these things, I'm going to go up here to the top here. Technically speaking, MailCow doesn't need an email gateway. It can technically run right here. I don't prefer to do that. I prefer having a dedicated email gateway, which is why I have the Proxmox PMG mail gateway in front. So what I need to do is I need to say to MailCow, hey, listen, you're going to get deliveries from this guy. Don't block them. They're legitimate. So that's what we're doing there. Okay. So let's go back to page 12. And first thing we're going to do in Proxmox is we're going to add this IP to deliver our emails to. Because if you remember from the last video, I showed you that we could see emails coming in, but we weren't telling it where to send them. Now I already added this IP on here, but I'll show you how to get to it. So we're going to go to Mail Proxy and the default mail gateway, this guy right here. This is the IP address of your MailCow service. And the relay port is 25. Unless you changed it, then you change it here. Once you do that, that means that all emails that come to your mail gateway will be sent to your MailCow service. And I don't think we need to do anything else on here. We will eventually come back here just to see what happens on here. All right, so we'll come back to this in a moment. Let's go back to MailCow. All right, the next thing we have to do is tell MailCow that it has to start accepting emails from this host. So we're going to go to System, Configuration, and then we're going to go to Options, and then we're going to click on Forwarding Hosts. Okay, and we're going to add one. Okay, So we're going to click here. It's going to be inactive, I think. Yeah. So my forwarding host is my Proxmox Mail Gateway. So in my case, it's 10.10.198. I'm going to go ahead and click on add that. And I disabled the spam filter. Again, I'm not using MailCow to do any of the filtering. If it was on the internet, the one that was directly connected to the internet, I would have it do that. In my case, I'm using Proxmox Mail Gateway for that. So there's my host. And you could use a host name if you wanted. I'm not doing that. I'm using the IP in my case. Once we've done that, now it will know that it's not blocking anything that's coming from this mail gateway. All right. And then the next thing we want to do, you know what? Look at this. I did this twice in here. I'm going to get rid of this line here. So you will see that updated in the document itself. Now we want to disable fail to ban. And the reason we're doing that specifically for this IP is, again, any emails that come from the Proxmox Mail Gateway, it's already factored and looked at whether or not the email is legitimate and all that. We are telling MailCow that any emails that it's getting from this server, the Mail Gateway appliance, are legitimate, and to not worry about whether or not it needs to block them. So we go to options, fail to ban, okay, and then down here under whitelist, 10.10.10.198, save changes. I like to do a restart. You don't have to. So it's going to let that do its thing. It's going to restart the container. Perfect. And now we have to tell MailCow that when it sends emails out, again, you don't necessarily have to do this. I like to do this because I like to have the Proxmox Mail Gateway be the sentry for all emails going in and out. Okay. So then I'm going to go to System, and we're going to go back to Configuration, and this time we're going to click on Routing. And under Routing, we're going to add the Sender Dependent Transport, which is going to be, let's make sure I'm not forgetting what I'm doing. Oh yeah, it's right here, yes. So it's going to be 10.10.110.198, and it's going to be port 26. And the reason I'm doing that, if you remember in the last video, by default, Proxmox Mail Gateway uses port 26 for internal SMTP traffic. In my case, I'm not doing any username and passwords. It'll accept emails coming in from this network. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add, and there we go. So it's in here. All right. And then we're going to set up our domain. So after this is done, this is all the stuff that, I guess, the prereq before we create email accounts and before we tell MailCow, hey, these are the emails you're responsible for. So now let's go to the second portion of this under configuration. We're going to go, sorry, under email this time. We're going to go here, email configuration, and we're going to add a domain. And the domain, in my case, if you guys remember, I was doing ytube.ak'tu.onl. YouTube test email. Could help if I could write. Okay. And then after that, we're going to do the sender dependent transport. I don't know if it's on here. I think I have to save it. Let's see on here. Yeah, it's not on here. Yeah, that's what I remembered. Okay, so after I add the domain, I'm going to save this info. So add domain only. And now I'm going to click on edit again. And under sender dependent transport, I'm going to select the one that we just added earlier. So that's my Proxmox Mail Gateway. That's my internal SMTP. So that's telling it that when MailCow sends an email, it's going to send it through this guy. Again, if you are making MailCow your primary server for sending and receiving emails, you don't need to do any of these steps. But again, that's the way I'm breaking it up for this this YouTube video series. Okay. So after that's done, now we get to do the part that would be rinse and repeat for you moving forward, which is setting up your email services for your email accounts. Sorry. So let's go to the previous page here, and we are going to go to mailboxes. We're going to add a mailbox. All right. So this is going to be, in my case, I'm calling my account YouTube. And here, YouTube test email. All right, and then password. I put test on there, but I'm going to make it something else. Obviously, I'm not going to show this password now because I use it everywhere else, but just because there's no point. So I'm going to go ahead and click on add here. Okay, and after it's added, it may have changed now, but I find that it still needed to be done. I would go to email and I would restart Sogo, which is just the front end interface, so it would see that the email's been created. Okay, and after that, we can officially start sending and receiving emails. So now I'm going to log out of here. I don't need to be in the admin portal anymore. I'm going to log on here. So it's going to be the email account I created. And then the password I have. Log in. And there we go. We are now in our email service. I don't really need this document anymore. So I'm just going to maximize the email system here. Now, I want to test sending out an email. So we're going to write a new message. So I'm going to do to Brian, which is my other email service that I use. And then I'm going to do test initial email. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and click on send. And that email should be on its way. So these are just default emails that it creates. If I go to Proxmox Mail Gateway under Tracking Center, we should see that email go out. There it is. See, and we got it from YouTube at y2.ak'tu.onl, and it sent it to this one. And if you notice, I think you'll see her here to this location, and status is equal to send. So I should now, in theory, be able to respond to this. Let me set up here. So let me do one more email. And you've seen me use this one before. So like I've said before, and you've seen it in the descriptions. Just because I do have this email address open right now. The other one I don't. So I'm going to let that get sent. And you'll see it on here. There it is. Oh, this one's deferred. That's why. Yeah. So this one's been accepted. I know that. So this one will eventually go through. This is just going through a different email server. This one I've tested against. So if I go to that email server now, and although I'm not going to show that, I will respond to the email. I'm going to reply, I just got this email. And I'm going to click on send. So this is going from another email server that I have to the one that I just created right now with you guys. And again, the reason this all works is all the stuff we've done beforehand, our DNS server, our PF server, our mail gateway, which is what we're looking at right now. If I click on search now, look at that. This is our email coming from the info at ak'tu Consulting. It's going to this inbox, which is the one we just created. All right, and you can see on here, look at the relays, you can see that it hit, and it hit this box and sent it out. So now on here, if I click on refresh, voila, there you go. There's the email that I just got. This is essentially, once you've done all the building blocks that were in the video series that I've created, this is all you really need to do to get the email going. So we have successfully set up an email server that could work with any email provider around the world. There may be some that might be a little more picky with regards to the fact that maybe you just set up your email server and it might spam you for a little bit or send you to the spam box for a little bit. But I've tested this against Gmail, Yahoo, Office 365, and they hit the inbox as soon as it sees that you've been sending emails from that email service for a while. It stops assuming that it's a spam email system, and it is legitimate. Obviously, anyone can set up things for nefarious purposes. So if anyone were to do everything I'm showing them what I'm doing here, and they use it for spamming or phishing emails, you're going to get caught pretty quick, and the IPs you're using, they will get shut down. You don't want to be there. I'm not doing this to show people how to do that. I'm showing this so people who are passionate about hosting their own services to be able to do that moving forward and have complete control over your infrastructure. If you have questions about, well, how do I give enough space for this, for the inboxes, we can look into that in another video. This one was just to set up the service, not so much about how do I make sure that my email accounts are they are persistent, but how do I ensure that I don't run out of space and all that stuff. There's things that you'd have to look at. Essentially, they are Docker volumes for the email accounts. There's a Docker volume you'd have to be taken care of and making sure you have enough space for and stuff like that. But that's all stuff that you could do just by generic sysadmin work on a Linux operating system. So that's pretty much it. The next video that I'm looking to do, I'll bring up my PDF document here. Now that we're done probably with the ones that had a lot of interest in, the next one I'm looking to do is either going to be a Nextcloud service, because there were quite a few questions on how to do that, or a web server. Actually, you know what? No, it'll be the reverse proxy most likely first. I don't think I've shown you guys what I use for that. And then following after that would be the Nextcloud service or the web server itself. My apologies. I just had to clarify on that. So stay tuned for the next video. Have yourselves a good day. Bye-bye.